I don't know how I'm going to do this unscripted, but I'm trying to make another video in the series about what the common religious thinker is left with after the analytic philosophers and theologians finish up with all of the concepts. And so, if you watch videos, if you watch people discussing proofs for God, proofs for religion, arguments on both sides, you got to remember my main channel is called Atheist versus Theist. I did that for a reason. I don't think anyone understands it. You can see the atheist cult members coming to my site pissed off. They're more pissed off than religious people. I don't know what that tells me. Actually, I do. I'm not going to say it right now because that's not what this video is about. This is about the common man who holds Christian beliefs, trying to deal with what's happened to the concepts that he loosely holds, which means he's probably not super critical about him. He goes about his day trying to make money and survive in Trump's upside down economy. So the average person is trying to survive, even in a second world country like the United States. The average religious person is left behind by analytic philosophy, obviously, and theologians who are trying to appease analytic philosophy. That's my contention. So you have philosophers or pseudo philosophers, most of them are pseudo, and that's what I want to talk about. That's why I wanted to make a longer video. I watched a video by some guy named Turek. There's 5 of these guys who are pretty articulate, well-read, pseudo philosophers, which means some kind of philosophy training and some kind of open-mindedness from their exposure to what is left of real philosophy. So this Turek guy brings on atheist kids. I still don't understand about this argue with kids thing, but we all know who did that, and it didn't work very well. I think that Turek's point really, again, the summation of so much of this is that these theologians, because that's really what they are just creating a gap. That's all they're doing. And so I don't think religious people really care about this. I do think they want to be armed against what has always been the problem for religionists, and that is they want to be armed against the skeptics and the critics. They want to have some confidence that they can feel better in discussions and socially when they come under attack, like I have. Now, I don't know why people think I'm religious or anything. I've told people that I'm not atheist. I don't know that it matters. What matters in this particular video is a religious person that leads an everyday normal life in a second world country like the United States, in moments where they do try to think about these concepts, because of course they go to work and they do things. But I think it was Tillich that had this idea that when you are confronted with big things in your life, you become more philosophical. There's a kind of change in your perspective. Your worldview is challenged from the outside that you cannot do anything about. When somebody dies. No matter how much you live in a bubble, you are confronted with these, what I call crises, and these things change who you are, at least temporarily, to the extent that you become more philosophical. So what do those people do in those moments? And that's why this matters, because those people participate in the world, they participate in society, they are just as social, and they're also the majority. And so what do we do with the masses, especially these religious people, when we can look at their actual written narrative today, philosophically, I don't know if that's the right phrase, and find that the people, the analytic philosophers, or even the atheists and the scientists, they're not that different. And the theologians, who also can be analytic, are arguing about something that doesn't matter to them. What do we do about that problem for the common religious person when there are these academic debates that mean nothing? And I'm not saying they all mean nothing. I'm saying that they should take into account the simple interpretation. And I think uh, not completely, but I do think that there's a big part of what common sense philosophy means in this particular discussion. And that is that the common sense thinking it emanates from the masses to the extent that they have some value in the way they experience the world and automatically understand things like truth and certainty. And that automatic nature, that automatic character, and the universalizable character, and even the social character of those components has some substance, may transcend the substance of the bullshit academic debate. So what Turek does, what I saw in his videos, is just belabor these kids with philosophy language and bullshit analytics to the extent that he uses rhetoric more than he does content, of course, more than he does real justification or argumentation or evidence. What he does is he kind of batters them with rhetoric the way a lot of these people have done historically. Some of what he does is critical, it's interesting, it's good. He creates a gap. So he creates a gap. The atheist kid doesn't know what to do with that gap. The atheist kid has some stuff written down and he says, well, in a very inarticulate, 18-year-old way, this in no way proves you're God, which is really the point. It really is. You've created a gap. You can't do anything with that gap. So why not just admit you don't know what to do with the gap? And that's where the scientist comes in. I don't believe that, but that's what people believe. And so Turek doesn't understand it. He creates the gap in a good way. And then like all of these theologians, he fills in the gap randomly. He fills in the gap with no criticality, with no, I guarantee you, this isn't an absence of thought and planning. I think it's a mental block that theologians have emotionally where and this has the effect on the common man, because the common man has skipped all of this argumentation and does believe these things. But Turek's point is, here's a gap, therefore a God. Bro, you would be doing a greater service by saying, here's a gap, I don't know what's in the gap. But then you can't be a theologian. But this is what Turek does. And this is what a lot of people do. Comment, please comment, bro, if I'm wrong here. But so many of these fake critical theologians and even analytic philosophers discussing them, or the transition stage between those two, what they do is they argue for these things and then they represent something that is no longer religious and they call it religious. This is the point of the video 8 minutes later. It is that these theologians end up dragging themselves because of analytic philosophy. And this is actually probably a good thing. They drag themselves so far away from conventional religious thought or social religious thought that they're no longer recognizable by the masses. And if you're not recognizable, again, the connection's broken. I don't know what you're doing, bro. You're sitting up in your ivory tower arguing with an armchair. That's not really what Reid said, but it's close. And so what the common man can do when in those moments of crises, when he wants to turn to someone who thinks, in a historical example of someone who thinks and someone that can inform him, or just help him. And you have this person that creates the gap, fills in the gap magically with no use analytics, abandoned analytics, and then now is talking like Turek does about a religion that's not religion. Because then his conclusion is, here's a God, but you don't have to believe him. Here's a God, but you don't have to pray. He didn't say that, someone else did. Here's a God, and I think in this particular case, you don't have to acknowledge him. You don't have to try to get to heaven. You don't. Bro, they eliminate every single thing about the common man's interpretation of religion. And I get that from an analytic perspective, the common man doesn't matter in this sense, that he matters, but his thinking doesn't. I don't know what they're talking about. But the point is that these masses that represent some element of common sense thinking have some inherent truth. I know this is a shock to all of you. Have some inherent truth that informs to such an extent that if you're a philosopher and you develop it the right way, you see that component so clearly, and in some sense, how it transcends this bullshit thing that Turek's doing, where it's religion and not religion at the same time. It's prayer and not prayer at the same time. It's God and not God. That's really the Turek point, was that I eliminate all of the characteristics of the God that the common man sees, and now I still want to be a theologian. No, you're not. You're an alienologian. You're now talking about aliens, and which is fine, but it's about the language. I got to end this video, bro. And I'm running out of breath, and my hair is going to fall out. I tried to fix it for you people, but my hair is going to fall out arguing about these points that humans have done such a bad job with philosophy. They don't know where to go. Do a better job. Get out there and make a difference. Do something. I don't know. Eat vegetables.